May I ask you specifically on terrorism? The main point that is just all over the internet every time there's a terrorist attack, that this attack, although it's the millionth times it has happened somewhere in the world, people will say everywhere it has nothing to do with Islam. It is poverty, it is disenfranchisement, it is a product of colonialism, it is unemployment, it is culture, it is everything but religion. I don't think anybody is trying to say that it's just religion, but I don't think we can completely discard the connection, considering that we simply don't have an equal amount of every religion committing this level of terrorism globally. What connection do you see between terrorism and Islam today?
Every terrorist that has a religious background called Islam is a Muslim. And if they are Muslim, then it is something that has everything to do with Islam. If they are Muslim, and no one can, this is the problem. You have Muslims that come and say that terrorist is not a Muslim. You are not the spokesperson for that terrorist. Unless the terrorist himself or herself announces that they are no longer Muslim, that's when you can say they're not Muslim. But for as long as they haven't announced, then you treat it as Islamic terrorism. Now, we could possibly say it's not Islamic terrorism if it was just one-off attack, a one explosion. But we've been having this for 1,400 years in every single method and form and country and type of weapon you can think of. It's not something that's stopped. It's continuous, and it's happening on a daily basis. Not weekly, a daily basis. There's not one day that a terrorist attack doesn't happen somewhere around the world. Iraq, Iran, Pakistan, it's just day after day, day after day. So clearly it has everything to do with Islam. We need to be honest, and we need to admit that our religion has been hijacked and infested by radicals and by Wahhabism. And we allowed that to happen. Now, many people will come and say, it's not an interpretation of Islam, it's the actual core of the essence of Islam itself. It's yes and no. Why? Because firstly, when Islam emerged, it didn't emerge as a religion that said, hey, everyone, let's start butchering and killing people. It didn't emerge like that. It emerged even in its wars. It was always self-defense when it came to Islam. But later on, interpretations were introduced to the Holy Quran because, for example, you look at Ibn Sina, you look at Gandhi, you look at all of these massive think tanks and giants when it comes to academia and all of these philosophers. They write many books. Many books. But you look at what the Muslims believe is the Word of God, the Holy Quran. It's only made up of a few hundred pages, and I'm pretty sure you would agree with me that God has a lot more to say than just 300 pages. Now, this places a question that this needs interpretation. With the interpretations, we have peaceful interpretations that look at the violence within the Quran and say these are stories. These are historical occurrences that show us the development of Islam. It had wars, just like how Christianity had wars and Judaism had wars. Islam also had its wars. It doesn't mean you apply that very story today. It's like that person who was put on the news that played Grand Theft Auto and then went out on the street and started hijacking cars and shooting people. And he said to the court that he was influenced by the game Grand Theft Auto. You can't be influenced by the Quran and then go out and do that. There are missionaries and there are mosques that promote a violent ideology of the Holy Quran, an interpretation, a violent interpretation of the Holy Quran. And I will be very honest with you, it's not the minority. It is the majority. It is the majority. Because it cannot be the minority when all of these terrorist attacks are happening every single day in different parts of the world. And this is why I use the word infested. and it's the minority is the Ahmadiyya community, the Ahmadiyya Muslim community, peaceful. Their love for all, hatred for none, cultural, loving everyone. That's the type of Islam we want. Look at, for example, some Shia communities. Why? Because we have Shia within my faith that support Hezbollah, and Hezbollah is a terrorist organization, or they support Iran, and the leaders of Iran are terrorist people, terrorist mullahs. And we have Shia who are also brainwashed into terrorism, and they think it's something good, jihad for the land and so on. It's terrorism. It's classified as terrorism. The main problem we have with the interpretations of the Quran is that we have ignored the peaceful interpretations, and the Muslims have gone to take what is violent, and then they try to justify what is violent, telling you it's self-defense, telling you that it's not applied here in Australia, like the person who appeared with me on Sunrise when he said we have no problem, we're living in peace and there is no problem. And that's why I said to him, don't lie to the people, because he lives under death threats, I live under death threats, and we're both on television discussing what happened last night, the Manchester bombings. If we're living in peace, and just 3 nights ago, the Melbourne siege, if we're living in peace, then we wouldn't be speaking live on television. There would be no need. But we clearly there's a problem, and we need to own this problem as Muslims.